Hello, how's it going? Hey Andrew, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing all right. I had coffee today, so I have no excuses for like being a terrible host or an unfunctional person. What do you have going on behind you there?
So I'm
Oh,
I
it's your
don't have to
television.
see the reflection behind me, so I'm setting up some nice ambiance behind me here.
I thought you were using like a virtual like camera or something, and you had like, the ability to do like the weatherman style, like poof, here's the thing, poof, here's the thing, which would have been really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good to see you. I feel like I haven't seen you in a while. Like we had a chat when you joined Contentful, and then like
Yeah.
before that, I felt like we hung out in Canada for a little bit back in I think right around after you'd had your first kid, if I'm remembering that correctly.
Yeah. It would have been a ways ago. Yeah.
So it's been too long. I'm really excited that we get a chance to hang out. This should really be a fun stream today. I know nothing about SEO. Stefan was joking with me earlier today when I was like, "Yeah, I don't really know much about this topic, so it should be really good." Where he's like, "SE stands for search engine," and I was like, "Yep, I knew at least that one." So
Yes.
that's kind of where we're starting here. So hopefully it should be good. Um, Before we kick things off, I've got a couple things to just go through on my side, and we have a giveaway to start. And then I figure we can get started on talking search engine optimization if that works for you. Cool. I don't know why I asked you. I'm going to do this anyway. If you'd said no, I would have still done my stuff. So, yeah, as for the folks watching, it's great to see you. Please do let us know you're in there. We love seeing the comments. We love the questions. We do have a code of conduct in this stream. So, TLDR, don't be a jerk. If someone's doing something to make you feel uncomfortable, feel free to reach out to us. Our full list of moderators is up on the Contentful developer documentation. Pew, pew, pew. We've got White Panther in the audience. That's exciting. Make sure to check out a developer portal if you're looking to see what our next streams are and what we're working on. We're going to be back next week with a stream about personalization, which should be really cool. You can get the info from the developer portal. Another thing you can do from our developer portal is you can join our Slack. So if you have questions outside the hours of that we live stream and don't want to ask us on camera, we're happy to chat with you on the Slack as well. We do answer a lot of questions in there as well. And I know, Andrew, you're in our Slack, right? The community Slack.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm in there.
And then the last thing is we've got a really cool GraphQL course that you can check out if you're looking to learn GraphQL or Contentful or React or any combination of the above. That GraphQL course is there for you. So that's it for my slides. And then the last thing I have to do is I got to start our giveaway. So every Contentful stream, we do a giveaway. We hook you up with swag, so socks, a t-shirt, a bunch of cool stickers. So I'm going to go ahead and start it. And so it is open. So all you have to do to enter the giveaway is just to type in -win, and you got to do that over on the Twitch channel as well. So White Panther, you work for Contentful, you're not eligible. That's totally cheating. So you have access to our swag store as well. You could just send yourself swag. You don't need a giveaway for that. But yeah, so that's it from my end. Andrew, do we want to switch over to your screen?
Yeah. Sure. So you can hear me okay? Everything's okay?
Yeah. I can hear you fine. It's a little muffled, but it's fine. Salma can't resist a good contest. That's great.
Fantastic. So I want to start off.
Oh, here we go. You're on screen. I see you.
All right, May the 4th. Happy May the 4th, everyone. For the folks internally at Contentful, they tend to know I'm a bit of a Star Wars fan. I've been referring to all of our Contentful team members as Contentfulorians recently.
I like that. That. It's a little easier to pronounce than Contentfuleros.
Yeah, and I hope that sticks. We'll see what happens. So today, just kind of brief, a bit of a plan today. So we'll do a bit of a high-level intro into SEO basics.
Yeah.
Should be fun. So we'll start there. Then we'll go.
Andrew, I hate to ask this, but could you turn your TV? It's super distracting. We got to get you like a Chromecast so it can do like photos and stuff on the background, or.
Yeah, well, yeah. I had eventually it goes to like very calm and soothing, kind of a rotation of photos and landscape.
Yeah.
but it has.
I love the aesthetic you have behind you as well. I feel like, we're a year and a half or a year and some change into this work from home life, and I love the background setup that you have. You got like your diplomas, you got a globe, like a plan. It's like a very classy backdrop, and I'm like really, really digging it.
I appreciate that. We moved in December.
Yeah.
So I've spent the last 4 months setting up the rest of the house, right? Like my wife's office, my kids' room, my kids' room, like everything else, all the we got some new furniture. We basically moved from like Toronto out into the burbs during COVID. So I we set up everybody else, and I'm finally getting around to setting up my office. If you look to my
Is this your office or is it your living room?
This is my office.
You have a TV in your office? Man, you're hardcore.
Yeah, thanks. People make fun of me. They're like, "Oh, the cobbler doesn't wear shoes, right?" Because it's only in my office that's coming to fruition now. But it's still a mess. It's still a work in progress. Got this great $12 IKEA shelf holding up really, really expensive paperwork.
Diplomas.
So we always joke about that. I figured, what?
Yeah, I have a cheap frame as well for my diploma as well. I like yours though. It looks a little more fun.
Yeah, I have an office now, and what else is that for, right?
Yeah, I've just got my toys all over the side. I don't have all of them on camera because I feel like people will realize that I'm really just still, a 12-year-old inside and not a 30-year-old. But
thanks. I appreciate that.
All right, sorry, we were talking about SEO. I've gotten us way off topic. So why is SEO important? I guess why should we be paying attention to you today? Why is it important, and why are you the person we should talk to? So
I think SEO has become ever more important year over year, right? So typically organizations and everyone says, okay, I have my storefront. I got my New York Times Square storefront, or I have my very high profile retail location. That's how customers are going to find me. That's where they're going to go and get my product. And that worked for decades, but now depending on how different events are happening around the globe, COVID being one that's very pressing right now, vaccination rollouts, lockdowns, openings, like Ontario and Toronto keeps, going back and forth. Like, we're open, oh no, we're back into lockdown. Schools are open, no, schools are closed, right? Like, there's a lot of uncertainty. So businesses can no longer rely on that retail footprint to be your front door anymore.
Yeah.
Your website, your web properties, that your homepage, that's your front door.
Yeah.
So if we consider from that angle, or that how people find your front door, they're not going to your mall. Yeah. They're not going to the retail location. They're going to Google. They're going to Bing. They're going to.
Hold on, I'm with you up until that last part. Who's going to Bing?
So I looked into the numbers right there. So
does Bing actually have legitimate traffic?
Huge traffic.
No way. Give me some numbers here. I need numbers. I don't believe you.
Okay, let's you know what? Let's do this. I'm going to do some.
DuckDuckGo uses Bing search results from Exegene.
Are you? There we go. Right. Thank you.
I still don't think is DuckDuckGo like a major search player?
So
all the folks that I know that don't use Google do it as a statement, and they're all like programmers that are like, yeah, I don't want to give, they're doing it from like the programmer ethos, not necessarily like my parents or like non-techies. I don't know very many non-techies that I guess they don't have opinions or they don't care as strongly as I do.
It's also like, there's tracking and all that stuff, privacy concerns. Every time, Google gets in the news for some sort of privacy thing, people tend to say, oh, I'm going to try something else.
Exegene just brought up a really interesting thing that Bing ads are cheap and they're the default search in Windows. And so if you're searching through Windows, that makes sense. Okay. Now I'm starting to come around to the Bing train. So
it's about 33% of all search in US is from Bing.
That's way higher than I thought it would be. All right, good on Microsoft. Keep it going.
And then Baidu has 75% of the Chinese search market.
Yeah, that makes total sense. China's its own elephant right there.
Yandex, 65% of Russian
I
search
haven't even heard
traffic.
of that one.
So like DuckDuckGo is on the rise, but yeah, like I would say, like I always flip back and forth between Google and Bing myself, right? And it's just if I'm on my Mac, it defaults to Google, but if on my Windows, it defaults to Bing. Ironically, I have recently switched to Edge across all my devices, as like I just find it to be a really good browser, and so Bing ties in pretty quickly with that.
I'm still on the Firefox train.
Still in Firefox. The reason I switched to Edge is on a Mac. It's like it's using the WebKit, like the Safari web engine. So it's like pretty close to Safari. On every other device, it's using Chromium as like kind of the backend renderer. So it's pretty close to Chrome. But then I have synchronization across Windows and Mac and iPhone. So
Exegete is saying Edge is so good for corporate with Office 365.
There we go.
But they use Firefox on their personal stuff.
Okay, so there we go. So you called me on the stats. I looked up the site, and it's showing. Okay,
that's really fascinating. I had no idea that it was that high. I would have assumed it would be like 10%, but that's crazy.
Yeah. So you asked me about the why. Like that's
that's the why. I totally agree with you on the front door thing. That makes total sense. And I definitely feel like we've been seeing it. I mean, you would have more insight into this than I do, just given that you're, closer to customers than I am. But I feel like we've been seeing a lot of folks just expanding their like digital storefronts and stuff like that as well. So,
well, investment's really, really high. So being in Toronto and kind of being a proud Canadian, like Shopify's in my back door. I have the backyard. I have a lot of friends at Shopify.
We might have some exciting content coming for you in the Contentful live streams in a week or two if you're a big Shopify fan.
Yeah, a big Shopify fan, and they have really enabled people across the world to kind of adapt really quickly. I also think they've created a humongous problem for us at Contentful. Because they've given everyone a really good commerce platform, and now all of these successful merchants need a really good content platform to support all of their non-commerce product information needs. So it's a good problem to have, and I think that's it's where we got to go, right?
No, I totally with you. Salma and I actually just had a meeting about this morning, so I hope she's still here, and I hope she's listening because we can add it to our notes about this because we've been talking about Jamstack e-commerce and Shopify and seeing what we can do around there, and so I'm with you, man. I think it's great. So
fantastic. Don't let me bias you because I'm always.
Oh, we picked already what we're going to be doing. So.
All right. Okay, where do we want to go now?
Well, so the thing that like kicked off this stream is that you posted your SEO thing to Ante's contentmodel.io, which was for folks that haven't heard of Ante or haven't seen contentmodel.io. We actually did a stream with him 2 weeks ago. And so that's up on YouTube. The recording is there. But I'd love to actually take a look at that. And maybe that's a good place to figure out because you've got a lot of stuff in that model that like I honestly didn't even think about. Like in my head, it's like, do the stuff for Open Graph and get that thumbnail and then like kind of move on like when I'm making sites. But you've got so much more detail in that model. And I feel like we could just talk about like a lot of that stuff if that works for you.
Let's take a dive back first. I do want to just set some kind of consistency in our terms as we kind of walk forward. So I'm going to share my screen. I've zoomed in a ton. Can you read the text on my screen? I
can read the text on your screen.
All right,
audience. I can't read what's in your address bar, but I can read everything else.
So this is just, there's a company called Moz based in Seattle, Moz.com, and they have a beginner's guide to SEO.
Yeah.
And this is their SEO 101 chapter.
Yeah.
We're not going to read the whole thing. I'm just going to summarize it.
I was going to say, I don't want to read a book with you. That doesn't sound fun. Exegete is asking for one more tick of Zoom.
One more tick of Zoom. Okay, thank you. How's that?
We'll find out. Let me know, Exegete, if that doesn't work for you. But let's keep going.
Okay. So search engine optimization, we talked about the importance of Google and Bing and how people find it.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that go into search. The first kind of premise is what's called organic search. So if your content is good, it's set up right, Google, Bing, they can index and find and help people find your content. That you're not paying media, you're not paying dollars, and you're not paying for banners or ads, you don't have a cost per click in an organic search result. So why SEO is important. So Exegete kind of talked about going to Bing and buying ads, and that being kind of a secret sauce. But if you have really good organic SEO, your cost per click goes down and your dependence on paying for that traffic goes down. So this is one of the kind of unintended side effects that everyone forgets about, and that I like to highlight to our customers is, you put some effort into creating really good content, you set up your SEO really well, your ad spend goes down. So your ROI is almost immediate. As your SEO and organic listings go up, your ad spend goes down. Everyone likes
it's like an investment in infrastructure rather than an investment in ads.
Yes, and with ads, you're always paying for ads. The moment your spend stops, you lose that traffic. With organic SEO, it's longer term, like it stays.
And I imagine the conversion is probably a little more useful, because like if they're coming through from a search rather than an ad, like maybe it's a little more like that's what they're looking for kind of thing.
I don't know. Theoretically,
okay. That's fair. That's an assumption I'm making. It's probably wrong, but.
Okay, let me ask you, how many times do you go to like a search page and there's like the first 5 hits are ads and you just go swipe? You just skip the first 5.
I have a very aggressive ad blocker setting, so I'm the wrong person to ask. I don't even see ads anymore.
Okay, I think Nielsen Norman Group, they're like a research firm, and they have this term called banner blindness. And I think they've done like exhaustive research that everyone just ignores the ads now. Like it's you swipe, you see a banner on a homepage, you're like, that's.
So SEO is like even more important than it used to be. Like it's even a bigger deal than it used to be. If people just aren't even looking at ads.
Yeah. So there's this acronym. I hate acronyms, but it's called SERP. So your search engine rank placement. You typically want to be top
of
10.
Google, top of Bing. Like no one goes to the second page, that kind of thing.
Exactly. So we kind of, that's kind of the why. So you can see right here, of all US searches, 2.8% people.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
SEO has 20 times more opportunity than pay-per-click on both mobile and desktop. And then there's some stuff on who to hire. There's also this thing around white hat versus black hat. Like a lot of search engine optimization specialist firms, they'll do stuff like keyword stuffing, and they'll build a bunch of like thousands of microsites that all link back to something.
And
so Google's official position, and I think they're probably right, is the stuff doesn't work anymore. They've gotten really good at weeding out the junk, and like Google calls, like they call them like that answer. They call it not the search engine, the answer engine, right? So they're intrinsically motivated to get people the right answer. So what we're not really talking about anything that's trying to spam or fool search engines today. We're really focusing on techniques and best practices. So that's it. And then there's kind of Webmaster Guidelines that we're going to go into what to do. So you can see like Google has principles. So make your pages for humans, not search engines. And that's a really, like, that means when we're writing content, you're writing content for humans. No deception, no tricks, right? And think about value proposition. So really, if you think about what Google,
which I imagine makes sense too, because if you're bringing someone into your website, right, like you don't want to bring someone in because you've tricked them, right? Like no one's gonna, that person isn't necessarily gonna stick around. That person isn't necessarily, they're gonna see it and be like, this isn't what I want, and then they move on, kind of thing.
Yep. And so if you think about what, like when I look at this and why I brought up this article is, when you think about Google in terms of like areas of focus, there's your content and then your technical side. And so I wanted to start with the content side, because Google is basically telling us, write good content for real humans. And that's what you need to do to satisfy that content quotient. Does it help my users? And and what would I do if this didn't exist? And then they tell you, don't make fluff. Basically, that's what you avoid. And then when we look at Bing, they're kind of saying the same thing: clear, engaging, easy to find content. Keep your titles clear and relevant. Think about popularity and social influence. They have positive signals, but they can also be weeded out if they're. And then page speed is important. And then things to avoid: thin content. So like having not enough content on a page, It's not
Which
good.
probably makes sense for like a lot of the recipe, like the complaint in the recipe world is that you have a giant blog post you have to read before you get to the recipe. Like on cooking websites, I'm imagining it's part of this. If you just have the recipe, it's too thin.
Yeah, I don't know. The recipes are pretty long. I think they do it because they want to maximize your time on page and the amount of banner ads they can see you. They can feed you.
Well, again, it's like what I'm saying. Like if you have more stuff in there, the percentage of ads, like you have more room for ads to make sure you're under whatever percentage Bing is looking for or Google is looking for. I hate it though. I hate it so much. But
so this is one thing that's pretty interesting too, cloaking, the practice of showing the search. So when we think about like React Native, Next, and static site generators or isomorphic JavaScript applications, typically we pre-render a entire static site or entire application so that Google can search it. And then as a user comes to the site, their client-side React takes over and they're showing whatever content is relevant. And we think about things like personalization. We might be showing different content to a unique individual that's authenticated and logged in, and we know their preferences than what the search engine is saying is showing. So Bing is saying, hey, maybe don't do that. And so it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out as organizations pick up more personalization tactics and use more progressive web apps. If Bing is going to adjust, or are they going to say, hey, you're cloaking and we're going to penalize you?
Yeah. So I guess a question I have for you here is there like a lot of difference between the Google and the Bing and I guess Baidu's ways of how they pick stuff up? And, do you need to compensate for those different, like what does well on Google doesn't necessarily do well on Bing, or those two search algorithms are getting, further away from each other, that kind of thing? Or
so I don't know the specifics of each search algorithm, but if you're writing really good content, and you have your technical SEO in check, which we're going to dive into for kind of the remainder of our time here, you're generally going to get picked up on both at about the same rate. Yeah. So
that's convenient. It's not. So it's like opposite of I'm like having horror flashbacks to web compatibility, or I don't know why I say flashbacks. I dealt with this yesterday, where you've got to do different things for different browsers, and so that's kind of nice that you can keep it consistent and.
Yeah. So also, I just wanted to highlight kind of one of the unwritten rules that they don't talk about in kind of the SEO content side. Here, when we see this article, I've zoomed out. I just want to show the structure. There's like a heading, a paragraph, a heading, a paragraph, a heading, a paragraph. It's kind of broken out, spaced apart. They weave in some bullets down the line, right? Generally, if you have a big block of text, that is not a good experience for the user. And that's the other, it's not explicitly stated in either the Google or Bing guidelines, but generally big blocks of text don't perform well. So those are kind of my insights so far. I want to flip over and talk about this. Has anyone ever seen Web Dev?
Yep.
So it's like, hosted Red House. So, Shai, maybe you or someone from the audience, give me a website. And let's
I mean, we could just do contentful.com or something.
Sure, we can do content. Okay, sorry, I have a test site that preloaded. You can see I'm working on
crushing it, man. What 11D site?
It is an 11D and Tailwind CSS.
Sounds
site.
About right.
So yeah, hundreds across the board. But let's give me Contentful is going to score well. Let's get another site. Let's get one from the audience.
Anyone in the audience have a suggestion? We got a little bit of lag, so it might take a sec for some stuff to come through. We could also do like
we can do Contentful. That's fine.
No. We could do like BBC. I don't know. How well do you think the BBC is doing? Or like,
let's do exegete.io.
Exegete.io. There we go. Love it.
I suspect it's doing well. Yeah. Let's see here. Okay. While that is running, you want to do? I'm happy to do Contentful. Actually, I don't.
No. We can just do this one. This is fine. It does take a little bit though. There we go.
Oh, Exegete, you're doing great.
Crushing it.
let's look at someone who we know is not going to do well. That way we can dive into.
I mean, probably my personal website is bad. Ruparel or shy.dev.
Take a look.
I have not touched this website since I was in high school.
So the reason I'm bringing this up, right? Because everyone strives. It's a nice little visual scorecard. It shows you across the board. Bad. So we've talked about content. Content being kind of factor number one in SEO. Factor number two, or the group of factor number two, is your performance, your accessibility, your best practices, and what they're calling SEO best practices. So your speed's pretty good.
Yeah.
And being from Contentful, we tend to get really good scores. What I like here is it gives you a lot of detail on what to improve, and then if you click on this little view report button, it gives you the full Lighthouse score report.
Yeah. I mean, I'm glad to see that the SEO does well, because largely all this website does is link to other stuff. Like if you Google Shy gave a talk, it has a link to all my talks and stuff like that. Okay. So, which is kind of more what I'm looking for. It's not, I don't blog on my personal website, and there's some transitions that were really cool back in the day that aren't so great now. But
so generally it's looking for, so you don't have to do a ton to rank well, but
I don't even think I have images on that page. Well, I probably have the background element, but
there you go.
The logo.
Your logo.
I guess I can add that.
And then
you know how old this is? This uses my full name. I don't use my full name ever.
Oh, you're not. You're getting a little bit of a security challenge there.
Yeah.
2 insecure requests. Your CSS file is insecure, and your root URL is insecure. So some adjustments to make there. Oh, your errors are being logged to console.
Mm-hmm.
So it's generally around your CSS file.
Yeah.
And so typically, so you can see the guidance, right? Like, don't log your errors.
Mm-hmm. I don't even think there are fonts on that page. There's no writing on that page. It's literally logos and font awesome icons. So I need to figure that out. I should fix this one of these days.
There we go. Source Sans Pro.
Yeah, but there's no, I mean, you can open up that website. There is no text on it.
You got, okay. And then, so you have some accessibility challenges around navigation.
Yeah.
And you don't have a locale, so your lang attributes, names and labels. So again, it's
the alt tab on the logo and
your links. So you probably have, they're just buttons. You don't have like a description of what these links go to.
Nope, but I should add them.
Viewport, so how people scale in Zoom. So you're zooming on your website. So like it's pretty good insights, right? That they're giving you. And then best practices we already talked about. Otherwise, it's pretty good. So the reason I'm highlighting kind of this page and this mechanism is this kind of factor number 2 in SEO is performance has to be really good, accessibility has to be really good. I mean, generally, this means there's a lot of different factors.
Yeah.
And then the best practices. So this is really about security. Right? Security is pretty key. And then SEO is more around structured content, and you're doing well because you must have like headings, right? So
I do have headings.
Yeah. And then part number 3 is this web vitals, right? Google is really promoting web vitals as kind of a key way. So that they talk about a lot about what I love how they use the term contentful.
Yeah, I'm always amused by that.
So they have, how long does it take for something to load, right? They generally are recommending a 2.5 second for the largest element on your page to load. Your first input delay, so the first time something shows up on screen that someone can do something, and then cumulative layout shift. If you've ever used like Adobe Target or those type of platforms and they re-render your page on the fly, you end up with like a flicker. That's generally very, very poor for user experience. Also, if you have things loading off page or I don't know. I think some people
animations, like I'm getting screwed over because I've got a bunch of animations on my site. Like that's why it's unhappy.
So it depends on the animation. If it's tasteful, it's fine. But if there's too much moving on the screen right off the bat, they're penalizing you. And this is like every corporation I've ever worked at loves having a homepage banner that rotates and scrolls through, and And, Nielsen Normal Group came out and said, okay, everyone has banner blindness, so stop doing this. People just scroll through. And now there's going to be a penalty on cumulative layout shift if you just have this, like, the top above the fold section just continuously refreshes. So I would really like to see this change happen in web design and web development around removing, just getting rid of those banners. Yeah. So these are Web Vitals. Now, there's a lot of information here. I really like our blog post on Web Vitals. So Constantine on our team wrote a pretty good post on Web Vitals and kind of the changes. So
yeah, let me go ahead and drop that in the comments for folks. Give me one second.
Yeah, drop that in there.
So amazing.
So May 2021, right? Like this is happening right now. So they're encouraging. So Google's kind of key thing is switching to mobile first and having a mobile first index. So if everything works well on mobile and it scales effectively on the desktop, it's a pretty strong signal.
Yeah.
When I used to work at a telco, and that's where we met in Canada, we had first party data, and we were putting mobile phones in people's hands. So we had first party data that, like, the mobile adoption of web for us was 60-70% of the user base, like 4 years ago, right? So this is in a telco, I guess that makes a lot of sense. I can see that trend permeating throughout everything else online. So being mobile first, and now May 2021, Google is basically mandating this approach. Yeah. And then talking about the three kind of major areas again, and then where do you get information? So you can get your core Web Vitals information in your Google Search Console, and it gives you a lot of good information on the Web Vitals and a bit of a scorecard in that search console.
Yeah.
So generally, when we do web.dev, we did not get any errors or reports on your website or on Exegete about Web Vitals, so we don't have to really take it to the next step. But if we did, this is how we would do it and determine what areas to fix it. Now, being on that first page of Google, potentially can double your traffic.
Makes total sense. I mean, if you're not on the first page, you're largely not on Google, I feel like is the sense I've got. So Contentful plugs here too, right? So our images API, really does the optimization stuff.
Yeah, because if you think about, like, what is taking all that time to load those web pages, it's not your text, it's not your.
It's these giant megabyte images. It's these large, CSS files. It's
yeah. So if you use Tailwind and you have kind of the I know Auntie talked about a little bit last week. It does kind of the purge of all the extra CSS, minimal CSS files, the images API from Contentful. So you have hyper optimized images. That should help you with your largest paint. Your first input delay. So if you have a lot of, like, JavaScript at the top of your page that's preventing things beneath.
Do it at the bottom, that kind of thing. Yeah. So
tree shaking, lazy loading, delaying on all non-critical scripts. And then on the layout shift. So again, sometimes if you do have a lot of CSS that you want, you might have to do some inlining of the stuff at the top to ensure that it works. But generally, you want to make sure that you have really good kind of CSS and properties, so that you don't have, like, a small image, and then when the image loads, it, like, expands the window and messes things up. So there are some good practices there. So that's the intro to SEO, kind of high level. Now we get into the fun part. So we've talked about, like, the security, the performance, the speed. I'm a fan of Jamstack sites because it really supports that notion. Now we get to talk about structured data. Like, what we're going to build a system, we're going to build an engine, but what are you going to feed into that engine to make sure you're taking advantage of all of these lessons learned?
Yeah, let's do it.
This is where you brought up, hey, like, this is a lot, right?
Yeah. I think you can just make it full screen. The Ante has the full screen button. And let me check this in the comments as well. It's just a contentmodel.io, and then I think it's the first one or the second one on the page. Oh, not that. That's wrong. Well, that's a link if you want to import it. So that I just said.
Okay, so I'm going to pause here, Shai, because you had a lot of comments, concerns, questions about this one.
There we go. Sorry, I was just tossing the link in the chat. So there we go. It is in the chat. Sorry. Yes. So we've got this content model. Let's talk about it.
Well, you said, oh, there's a lot there. I heard you last week on the Twitch as well.
Yeah, there's a lot here, right? Like there's so the stuff that like jumps out to me is like I always do the open graph stuff, and I kind of usually just leave it at that. And I think I do the canonical and the title and all that stuff too. But maybe we could go into these by one and talk about why they're useful. I mean, so you've got all this other stuff outside of the SEO include, right? You've got the author with a bunch of info. You've got the company with a bunch of info. Is that like how important? Like, is that partially like SEO related, or is that just a like for the content model, for the hypothetical of what this is doing?
So my first initial kind of stab where this came from is we had a customer that was like, hey, do you have an SEO plugin similar to Yoast for WordPress?
Yeah.
And we're like, no.
Hypothetically, like what? Well, not hypothetically. I actually have no idea what Yoast is. Like, what does it do, and why do you want to emulate it?
So, well, I don't. Right. This is just
why does this customer want to emulate it?
Because well, they're coming from WordPress and Contentful. They're modernizing their world. They're moving the Jamstack, and their authors are asking for Yoast. And then obviously our Contentful reaction is like, you kind of don't need that, but you know what? Okay, so I spun the wheel. I was like, this is what it would look like if we were. So I went into an old WordPress site, decomposed what Yoast SEO was doing for WordPress. By the way, if you're on a WordPress site, like the plugin, like everything around WordPress SEO, it is this plugin.
Yeah. So
I decomposed this plugin to see all the pieces that go into it and why everyone in the SEO world is head over heels for this plugin. And it does a lot, right? So we're obviously biased coming from Contentful because what Yoast is adding to WordPress is structured data, and it's giving. But the way they've done it, and I think a lot of this has to do with some of the limitations and legacy of WordPress, is they need to break down all of these content objects into different tables in order to assemble it back together in render time in WordPress. And I started to think about like, this is kind of nonsensical because this is all going to execute in real time. You're calling 7 tables and then rendering a page to do SEO best practices, and you're going to spend a second to like render that page because you have to stitch together your SEO.
You have to make a bunch of requests and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So factor number 1 in SEO is out
largest
the window
because
you lose your speed, and so then like you put all this effort into making your WordPress instance SEO friendly, but you've already lost the battle. Yeah. So this is a bit nonsensical, but it did help identify the type of information that we want to be able to store and capture in order to surface in our front page. So generally, you have your title, your description, your canonical URL. So your title, sometimes you have it. I don't know. The premise in this plugin is your SEO title could be different than your content title. Generally, that could be the case. Sometimes, not always. Same with your description, canonical URL, right? So what is the source or web?
If it's a repost or something like that, like if it's blog post is first on contentful.com, and then you also repost it to dev2, that kind of thing.
Or like Hashnode or Medium, right? Then this Google Knowledge Graph is where we start to get into kind of the cards that show up in your Google search. So you can identify and share if someone's a person or a company, and then have an author model and then a company model, and you can pick one or the other or have multiples. Then you go into SEO Webmaster Tools. So you for each of those different search engines, you can put like a code or an identifier that verifies that you are the owner of this website, and then Google will route you the right notifications and information. Same with Bing and Baidu and Yandex. Twitter has like a special site name field. So there's and it works for Open Graph as well. So you can have a different site name if you want to specify it differently than your company. And So if you're in that kind of Yoast WordPress landscape, though, you are entering in all of these fields for every single page that you make.
Every page. Wow.
Yeah. So some content authors, really like the flexibility. I talked to Kirsten, our manager and blog editor, about how we have it set up in Contentful, and she's like, "There's no way. It'll take me way too long. It'll take my team way too long. Like, we need a much more streamlined, fast process."
Yeah.
And I was talking to Ruben on Slack about this, and he's slamming me. He's like, "Don't share this with customers. We don't want to set them up. This is an anti-pattern or a bad practice, because so much of this is duplicate information."
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like references make that easy. You just point to the thing, and if the person, let's say they get married and they change their last name, or they easy to update, you do it in one place and everything is percolated and reflected.
Yeah, exactly. Nice. And then, do you need a different title for your Twitter or Open Graph? Do you need a different description?
Not. Yeah.
Do you need a different image? Locale, I think just everything has a locale. Like, you should have a good default language. By default, EN-US tends, if you don't have it specified, so that can be optional. But if you are building pages in other locales, you want that field. And then the URL. Does this need to be different than your canonical, right? So there's a lot of duplication. This asset is just like our media library field. It's anytime you reference an image that comes along. So this was take one, the basic SEO inspired by Yoast. Someone wants to go that approach, they can totally go that approach. Take two is what I'm calling better SEO. But we have every single field that we were just looking at in those 7 content models. The irony is, like, if it takes 7 content models to do SEO, it's a bit extra, right? So
So this one's a little different here, right? Like, you've got so I see that you've merged a lot of this stuff, right? You've merged the verification, you've merged, what do you do so in the previous example, you had company and person as like discrete separate things. And I totally get where you're coming from with merging the company and, like, all the site verification and all that stuff. What would you do? Or is that like assuming a scenario where you don't necessarily care about like who the author of content is? Or is this more just like, this is the thing that'll be reflected across the entire website, and then individual pages you would maybe add that stuff in? Or
yeah, so if we think about, that's a good question. So this site config, like person or company, I could have one for Contentful and another one for Andrew Kumar and another one for Shy.
Yeah.
Because your Facebook URLs are unique to you, mine are unique to me, Contentful is unique. And then this SEO include would get included at the page level. So if there's like,
so the SEO include is on every single page, or
it's on like, every single page, but it's unique to every page. So if there's an author profile for Shy, it's going to pull in the Shy version of this. If there's an author profile for me, it's going to pull in my version of this. If it's not an author profile, basically every other page is going to
so you're just reusing the same thing. So you could have multiple configs, maybe, like you've got the Contentful config and the Andrew Kumar config.
Yes.
Yeah.
So on those specific author profiles, it would pull the individual versions of the config. But if it's just like a generic page about Content Hub, it will pull the company version for that specific page. So
that makes total sense to me.
Yeah, so the same model. So another advantage of this too is, we do have customers that will say, okay, I have the same code base, styled config, styled components, so I can change my logo, fonts, colors. Like, they can drop those variables into the site config, and then in one Contentful space, they can have a site config per company or per brand, and one space can power many different websites. Yeah. And so that is kind of the advantage of this approach, is you can have many entries in this site config per person, per company, and kind of do a multi-brand, multi-author type of solution. And the model is that much simpler, right?
Yeah, I like this model. This model is much more manageable than the previous model, because at the end of the day, this one is 2 things and an asset rather than 7 things and an asset.
Yeah.
Much less clicking as well. So, which I imagine makes the experience for your non-technical folks that actually have to fill this stuff out much more manageable.
Yeah. So our Contentful website looks a lot like this.
Yeah.
It's not identical, but we have a little bit more in some areas and a little bit less in some areas, but generally a simpler, flatter, and it's better authoring experience because you can just be faster.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we're not talking about better SEO today, right?
You got one. You've got best SEO or ultimate SEO.
Well, we're not. This is where I get nervous. we're gonna make.
Dude, you're crushing it on Contentful.io. They've got to make a leaderboard and put you on the top. And look, you've got 3 already.
Do I have 3?
Well, I mean,
I haven't published the ultimate one yet.
Yeah.
We only got the 2 right now. So now this part makes me nervous.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have anything next. It's not pre-rendered. It's all we're gonna be on the fly now.
Let's do it.
Okay. So now, I'm gonna zoom in. So where I want to go with ultimate SEO has to do with something called Json Ld.
Yeah, I've heard of JSON.
Let me do the Json Ld spec first. Let's do it here. So Google has this Search Central kind of their documentation portal, and what we're really talking about here is structured data, and they've provided examples and feature guides. So if you create an article, so what they're saying is, at the top of your page, you can put a script snippet, a lightweight script snippet that will help Google and other search engines relate and understand what that content is, and then show it slightly different. So if we look at the feature guide, and we kind of just at a very, very kind of high level, let's see if we can look at like an article. So when we look at an article, this is how Google says, okay, we'll change how it shows up in the search index if you're implementing structured data. So, you can show up in that top story kind of article. So it just gives a little bit better visibility on your content.
Yeah, I really like
that. How's that going to do for click-through, right? If you got this type
if you have the nice, fancy-looking thing that feels organic and...
Exactly. So
I like the ones that they've chosen for these features. Like estimate salary is a weird one.
Well, they're doing it for job posts.
Yeah.
Right, because they have their job board.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So if you're doing
if you've got your careers page or something, it's
you can have all your job posts so they have one down here called job posting. So you can also have multiple snippets per page. So if you have a job post, you can put a snippet that has all of the
interesting that they've like explicitly pulled jobs out as a I mean, I know recruiting is like a pretty big industry, but it's still surprising to me that, I mean, I guess this is cool because you've got Google Jobs, and I imagine since they're crawling the internet anyway, this just makes it easier for them to populate that page. But yeah, that's really interesting that they've done that.
Yeah, so they have job posts. You can do a job post and an estimated salary, and so you can see they've provided like a bunch.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff in here. Math solvers. That's another interesting one that they.
So you can Google. So it'll help you with like equations, right? So if you have a page on education, you can do math solvers.
Yeah.
So
recipes
really though,
make sense too. And
what don't you see here?
Don't I see? I mean, we had author, I think, is gone.
Yeah.
Or like person.
Yep. Well, Google is making for some reason they're not I don't know, focusing on or providing a emphasis on people, but they do have product.
Yeah.
Right. So this comes in handy. Helps with search, helps with price, helps with rating. They don't
I'm hoping you can manually set that rating, and it's not a thing that they go out and search, so you can just give yourself a 5 out of 5.
There is let's see.
No, actually, wow. Okay. That's funny.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, Fred Benson. I know that guy.
Really?
He's a former Kickstarter guy that is now a VC. So
very cool.
He did a bunch of like emoji conversion stuff back when emojis were fresh. So he's known for Emoji Dick, which is a Moby Dick, but entirely in emoji.
Emojis?
Yeah. Very
cool. There's no page here, right? They'll have something around software app, they'll have articles, they'll have video, but they have event.
Hey Luce, how's it going? Good to see you in the chat. I guess then, like taking this back to like the Contentful model, right? Like we've got our SEO model in Contentful. Like, are you? I mean, do you need to then make like a drop down or like a content model for like the things of these that you're using, or because I imagine that the formats on these are, you know, they're going to have specific things that you need and specific requests and like pulling this back into generating that JSON LD from inside Contentful. Like, what are you doing there? Like, what's your thought process around that?
So this is where kind of this is where the kind of my opinion comes a little bit more forefront, right?
That's why I wanted you on. I want that opinion.
So where my head is going is, if we look at this, and then we kind of overlay what we have in our SEO include and what we have in our site config, and basically the only thing I would carry forward in Ultimate SEO is the site config, and then everything in this SEO include. The intent is, okay, we'll just create a copy of this per content type.
Yeah.
So we create like one.
Oh, like you've got an article object, and then the article object has all of the stuff that you're requesting for this. You've got I don't know, what was it? Product object, and you have the thing. You're using the career page, is using the career model, and that kind of thing.
You got it, right? Yeah. So let's go create an article. I'll use this SEO include as the starter, and then let's add the fields into our article. Now, an actual article in the real world, you know, you'll have a lot more information than just what's in the JSON LD. But if we have a JSON LD or a structured data starter, and then you add in your descriptions, your rich text, your fields, your author, your tagging, your categories, it's a pretty good way to quick start and have the SEO practices from day one.
Yeah. And then I imagine you're reusing this because you have the JSON LD, I imagine that, like, because is JSON LD support picked up in Bing and Baidu and Yandex yet? Like, if it's not there, then you're getting back into the, like, you know, browser land of like, you need, you know, to do both so that different things can pick it up.
Yeah. So I have it zoomed in. It's much more zoomed in, but can you still read my screen?
I can still read it, but folks in the comments jump in and let me know if you can.
So on the left, so I basically have my Contentful set up. So I have a few different spaces for different things. So now I'm calling kind of the ultimate our JSON LD starters.
Yeah.
So let's build one. Let's just build the article.
Yeah, article sounds good.
And then before we build JSON LD, right? Because my intent at one day is to have kind of the major ones here.
Yeah.
Set up.
Is there an export you can do that they export like the JSON blocks, like all of them empty? Because then you could probably write like a migration or something to pick it up and populate it for you.
Probably. I'm not going to do that today.
All right, that sounds like a lot of work. Don't do that on stream. Do that in your own time.
I'm going to just create a duplicate and call this the template.
Yeah.
Or template starter, JSON LD. And then that way I can duplicate this later as I create other ones.
It's really fascinating to me. I had no idea that this existed, and so I definitely feel like I'm learning a lot here today.
That's great. So when we say like we gave the title Ultimate SEO, this is where I think
this is where you're going.
This is where we're going, right? Like, so every organization is going to have this JSON LD snippet in all of their pages. Writing it manually is not feasible, right? It's not, but having an article content type in Contentful that auto generates and auto feeds everything, that
seems totally doable, right? Like we're giving your front end a structured blob anyway. Like you're getting a structured JSON blob. All you're really doing is repopulating it to make a new one. You could probably write, if you're using GraphQL, like a specific GraphQL query that just is like, cool, get me the exact JSON that I need and format it specifically for what Google is looking for, and then dump that in the page, kind of thing.
Yeah, we'll make it a bit simpler today, though, right? Yeah. We'll probably just pull out of the Contentful query for this article and populate it into the front end component.
Yeah.
So let's create article, right? So we have an article. The title. We have a headline. I think the context. The context is always going to be schema.org. Should we put some sort of identifier that says, okay, this is a news article? maybe.
Yeah. Does it give you options of what you've got like in that section, like what they're looking for? Because I'm curious if it's like a set of news article, PR article, that kind of thing, or
I don't know. I think it's always news article. But if we go to event, the type changes.
Yeah.
So
article, they must have just made it news article then, rather than, that makes sense.
That's interesting.
Actually, it's weird that they've labeled those differently, but it could just be.
Because like I originally just called the whole content type article, because then we can.
I mean, they're doing it too. Like they called it article, yet they have it set as news article in their thing. So. And
then they have this, right? Yeah. But.
So these are default things that you're giving to let Google know that this is what the Json Ld is. So it's required. So you don't necessarily need it. Your front end would, I imagine, fill that in for you.
Exactly. But I'm going to quickly, because you're asking me these questions, let's go to schema.org. This is schemas.
Bump the fonts up a few times.
Okay. And then what are we looking for? Article?
Article. Yeah, so they've got a difference there, article and news article.
Where did you see that in the search?
If you go back to the search, they had news article as the second thing.
You're right. So.
And then tech article as well.
Yeah. And I think that those are the main three. So we may want to just be super generic. I don't know why Google, maybe it's just their.
Yeah, that's one of those things where I'll be honest, I'm not the biggest fan of Google's documentation in general. I'm not the biggest fan of a lot of larger organizations' documentation, especially when they have a lot of products. I find that it gets a little rough sometimes.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I'd be curious if on that Google page, like if you just did Control F for news article, if they had it as a thing listed on that page.
There is a bit of commentary here, right? Yeah. For article, typically news article, there's a backstory, but there's no prerequisite.
Yeah, and this is old school because it's talking about pages. Like I'm imagining for like books.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it says page end and page start, like
in 130 settings. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think for our purposes, I'm happy to generify and just use article.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure Google probably does.
I mean, that's one of those things that I feel like you test pretty quickly and be able to say, okay, Google does not recognize this as valid Json Ld, so switch it to news article, that kind of thing. Like we could figure that out with a Google search. We don't necessarily need to do it now, but is it an interesting thing to, I think, talk about.
So we can default to article, and then this is all just kind of standard, right? Even there it's Google. So we have a headline. We already have our headline.
So this is the stuff we're doing. This is where we've done so far is just declarative. This is the format that we're using. This is legit, and now we're starting to do customized stuff here.
Yeah, yeah. So headline.
Yeah.
I'm just saying type. We'll use the type.
Yeah, like it's a content model map 1-to-1.
Yeah. And then images, right? You can see here now they're asking for a 1x1, which I'm assuming is square. 4x3, 16x9.
Yep.
So should we put 3 image?
No. I think we should do 1 and then let the image API handle it in the front end when we're producing this JSON blob.
Can we reuse the OG image?
I think we can reuse the OG image.
Then we don't have to do anything.
Yeah. And then image API will handle that. Those are, I think, all 3. I mean, you can manually set your values, but also all 3 of those crops are supported.
Yeah. So now let's move into the date published then.
Sys field.
Sorry?
So that's either going to be your sys field or it's going to be a thing that you do manually if you're doing it as a, like, we want things to go out at certain dates and look like they've gone out at certain dates. So
I am going to lean on having a manual published date because
that's probably more representative of what people are doing in the wild.
Also my what I've done, so for context, right? Like I've deployed Contentful so many times, and we're always like migrating. So the sys field ends up being the date that we migrated it, not the date that we published it. So we lose. If I publish something
the original published date,
the sys field is date of migration. So then I have to reset or remap. And the sys fields you can't change. So I actually am going to add a field here for published. I think
I was gonna say, you edit your
modified.
content probably a lot more than I do. I usually publish it, make a bunch of changes the morning of when I realize that stuff is broken, and then and then never touch it again.
For
And that works out
modified,
just fine because it doesn't include hours on my timestamps for the most part.
nice. So I'm thinking for date published, it's fine. Validations, probably say
Required.
it's required. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of making everything required.
And then date picker.
Yeah.
24 hours. Okay, it's fine. Okay. Now and then this came after the image. So I'm just gonna tweak the order, right?
Yep.
For date modified, should we just pull the sys field?
That I think you could do the sys tag.
Okay. Now we have author.
It's going to be a reference, I imagine, to your author type.
Yeah. So
or your site config.
So I'm gonna just change this. So I'm gonna make the first site config author.
Yeah.
Okay. And then validations.
Only take site config.
Appearance. Probably do card. Let's do card.
Yeah. Take the photo.
And then let's do another reference to one reference. We'll call this one publisher.
Yeah, or company. So I guess the interesting thing, or there's another decision we can make here, which is that publisher could be, because is the publisher ever going to change on like your website level? Like can you have everything content type or something like that, and you leave that at like the root level, so you don't necessarily have to manually set it every time?
So that's a good point. So maybe we just go right back to site config then. Just reference your site config, because the organization will come from site config.
Yeah, I guess the weird thing there is like, are you going to have
you have to reference it every time you create a post.
Yeah, or maybe you just make a content type that is like site, like publisher content, and it references like root organization, and all it does is reference the site config. So it's one content type that has one entry, so it's easier to find as well, because you're going to have a bunch of different site configs, and you either need to hard code the ID of your publisher, or
So use case. I'm just thinking about extensibility, because one of the things that I'm like, at least once a week, I'm talking to customers about powering multiple sites from one space, and there's like a pattern where you have one space and you have one site, and then I enter and I'm like, you can have 12 sites powered by one space. There's no one-to-one mapping.
Yeah.
It's not a database, right?
Mm-hmm.
If we take that approach, I'm leaning towards doing.
Well, then your root level is going to have two things, right? It'll be it's going to be a reference to your site config, and then specifically a call out for which site it is, right? Like site 1, site 2, site 3, site 4.
But the publisher information will be part of that site config.
Yeah.
So
that's why I'm saying you have a top level thing that then references the site config.
So where I'm thinking is we just put like organization or publisher here.
Yeah.
And this
I guess this makes more sense if you're powering the same space. Then that makes sense, because then you can filter by organization and stuff like that too.
Yeah. I don't think not everyone is going to need this, but I'm just thinking
this is, I think, a really interesting difference in like the way that I write content models and the way that the organizations that you're working with write content models. Because like for me in my head, it's like it's very rare that I'm doing more than one code base off one content model. And whereas it sounds like for you have a lot of people in that use case, and so the content modeling decision is going to be different here. And so like I think you're probably since you're thinking kind of a bigger thing, this probably makes a lot more sense, and we should just do it. We should do it your way.
So for context, where I'm coming from too is we have a lot of customers that are potentially coming from like a Drupal or Acquia site factory, and like that Drupal ecosystem is just a mess right now. So someone's like, I got 50 sites, I got to port over, and we're like, okay, how much content reuse do you have across those 50 sites? And they're like, there's like unique about pages, unique contact information, and unique blog posts. The other 80% of the site is the same across every brand, every what are they called? Like when you license, when you're like licensing and like 1-800-GOT-JUNK, like everyone owns their territory, but everyone still belongs to 1-800-GOT-JUNK. Franchise. every franchise.
Yeah.
80% content reuse across the franchises, but that 20% is what's different. So that's what's top of mind for me right now. So I'm thinking I'll just keep going down that thread. If you don't mind.
Let's do it. I'm into it.
Let's create and configure this one.
XG just posted tenant ?
Yeah, that's another way of thinking about it. Yeah, like I was specifically thinking about this franchise model, but that's kind of like the business model, right? You own a franchise, and you are a tenant. You're leasing the brand from someone. You're leasing the infrastructure from another, but you're operating the local business. Let's make this required, and
always make it required when you can.
Yeah, and then well, actually, we should put some custom error messages here, please, or help text actually. Please select. Okay. And then I think over here, because we're reusing the same content model, although, some people might say, I don't want an individual person or author. So maybe we'll make this one not required. And then they can also say, okay, this blog post was by Contentful, because some organizations.
Yeah, like have a fallback or something.
Yeah, so we'll do that. So that basically
covers the whole thing.
Yeah, and all we added was date, and we modified some of the
easy.
Do you want to do another one while we're here? I don't think.
Yeah, why don't we do? What else do we have?
I like event.
Yeah, let's do event. I was going to say math solver, but event probably makes a little more sense.
Yeah. Well,
although people in the chat, let me know if y'all are writing math solvers and this would be useful, and then we can do that instead. But for now, we'll do event.
We can do events. Maybe we do product. Do you want to do product? Product might have a lot of information that is quite a bit of variation, and. We have a lot of extensions and plugins that provide a lot of the product.
Yeah, so this one will be interesting because price isn't necessarily a thing that you're pulling from. Like if you've got that Shopify integration, the front end is going to be reaching out across, a little bit and doing some schema stitching and then building this together, which is kind of cool.
The product, the name, the images, the description might all come from Contentful. The SKU, the MPN, the brand, it's all Shopify, right? The reviews. The author might come from Contentful.
Yeah, reviews are a lie. You just make everything a 5 out of 5.
Yeah, exactly. And how many count? You can put the count.
That makes me so mad that it's all you manually do this on your own website. That makes it such a bullshit.
Yeah. Well, my assumption is they say you pick up those values from a Bazaar Voice or some start.
Yeah, or you have a site review on your site and you do it programmatically and then just delete the bad reviews or something.
Yeah. Well, incrementally goes up, or random number generator. This entire offer would also come from that third party, like the Shopify API. So maybe I don't want to do this one. Let's go back to event where we can power. Oh, actually, how about this?
So that's the other highlight from this stream is we've completely lost faith in reviews on Google. When it says the reviews, I do not believe it anymore.
Do we want to do a Speakable?
Ooh.
So Speakable is really cool for voice skills.
Hold on. We've got a question from Martin. I think I missed something earlier when I stepped away for a couple minutes. What's the purpose of matching Contentful content models with the schemas that Google has? Is it to ensure that you have all the SEO fields that Google expects?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, so that's what we're doing in this exercise is kind of showing, okay, this is what the schema expects. We want to make sure that as a baseline, we have captured that information in our article, like Json Ld article starter, because the intent is then we can publish this to contentmodel.io, and when someone's building with Contentful, they can just pull this starter and then add the additional fields that are necessary for building an article. Yeah. Like we haven't put a rich text field in here. We haven't put any categories or tags or anything, because then that's what can be added by developers, by content modelers in real time based on their needs. But we'll at least have a starter that brings across all the Json Ld.
Yeah. So and the other thing to I guess really highlight is Json Ld is kind of the current or next gen way that Google is using to do SEO. And so you're going to have to start you want to do well on Google, you're going to have to start implementing Json Ld on your site.
Yep. Thanks, Martin. I kind of want to do Speakable, right?
Yeah, let's do it. So what's a Speakable versus what's an so Speakable is like a audio playback. Oh, that's really cool. So like if you have a smart, reading thing or something.
Right. So if you have a Speakable script or tag and you're doing a search on a Google Assistant, you say, hey Google, tell me what you know about Shai Ruparel. Shai Amal Ruparel. It's going to pull your Speakable snippet.
Yeah.
If in lieu of your Speakable snippet, it might be like, here's what we found about Shai Ruparel, and then
which is great because I have no text on my website, so like it's not going to be able to do anything. Like I still have to go put alt images, but yeah, this is great. Let's do one of these. I feel like this is an interesting one to like put onto. Like, is this one that you would do multiple? Like, you would have a Json Ld for article, and then you would also have a Json Ld for Speakable, and so you'd have two different things, or?
I think so. And I think actually they don't talk about stacking.
Yeah, because I imagine like you'd want one on a scroll up for me for a second. Take a look at that JSON object. I'm curious what it's asking for.
Context, web page, name, and Speakable. So actually, can I go back to article for a second here?
Yeah, go for it. Do your thing.
So we look at article, the headline, the image, the publisher. We could probably just add another value, another key value pair, or another nested value.
Yeah.
We just add Speakable. Right
now, is it creating like a discrete page for the Speakable, or scroll across on that URL? I don't know what that URL is gonna. The quick brown Faqs _example. So it's the same. It's not like it's calling out a Speakable URL or anything, or
no, it's the same web page type.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, so now the type is web page now.
Yeah. So that is a thing.
Yeah, but my assumption here is you could just add your Speakable as well. Now, what is happening here? So I'm going to scroll down here a bit. So make sure
let's read those docs.
Add Speakable structured data to your page. Oh, submit your content to begin your onboarding. So this one's a bit different.
This seems tricky.
Yeah. And then if we look at what it's telling us, there's no content. It's telling us to go pull the title and go pull
the description.
Meta description. So if you have so this could actually be generic.
Yeah. And then they have a meta description up top as well.
Yeah. So it's.
Yeah. So I'm wondering if you could just pull that Speakable object then, like we were saying, like.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what the type is. That's just a thing you can put into every page kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't actually think we would need to do anything then for this, right? Like this is just a thing that you could add to your.
Every single snippet.
Yeah.
To make every single page.
Speakable.
That's cool. You just have to make sure you have title and meta set up and
which like also like you can pull the title and meta from what we have right now anyway, because like your title is going to be your headline and your description is your meta description, and so you still should probably be doing both of these things, because like the meta is going to get picked up by like OG Graph, or if I don't know, Baidu doesn't have Json Ld implemented yet, which they might not,
Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna skip Speakable then.
I think that's an interesting thing that we've learned, that like it doesn't take a ton to re-implement or like reutilize a thing and fill it out. And I think that's one of those things where Contentful is nice, right? Like, because it's your front end is just taking this data and just being like, yeah, like it's already here. Here you go. You can have it again. Like, if you need it, Google. Like,
you write the code once.
Yeah. I'm curious about like COVID announcements as well. Like, is it the same thing? Is it just a sub object of like a bigger thing? Like,
so
like your
closure notices, government benefits, quarantine guidelines. Oh, so this is how it displays.
Yeah.
You have this like, so it has a timestamp too. And then you can add a special announcement, structured data to your web page. And then you have to submit your announcement to the Search Console. So similar to Speakable, you have to submit it.
Yeah.
And then let's see if there's an example here. Here's the Json Ld.
Yeah, and then this is a Is there a type here, or is this just a?
It's a type. Special announcement.
Special announcement.
Name you can pull. You have a as of. So this is your content, your text, then your date, when it expires, which is nice, and then references to quarantine guidelines, disease prevention. There's a category. I'm assuming these are going to be fixed based on the type.
Yeah, go to that link. What do we get in that link, out of curiosity? Okay, that's it's
just a data entry on. And then you have some coverage.
Yeah. So where you need it, which makes total sense, because
Yeah. So it's
and this is a thing that you'd add as an addition, I imagine, rather than have you'd probably have an article as well as a shelter in place, or as a
I would create a type called special announcement, and just make sure we have. Do you want to create a special announcement field since it's hot topic? Probably do this one pretty quick.
It's probably like a toast. I would do this as a toast on my website if I needed to, or something like a drop-down banner on the top, or.
Yeah. So you could, and then you just pick whatever the latest one is, and then Google will also pick it up in this little. Yeah. What do you call these? Drawer. Expanded collapse drawer below.
Yeah. I know what you mean. I don't know what they're called, but I know what you mean. I think of them as toasts, but.
I've never heard the term toast. I just. Okay.
FAQ.
Do we want to model another one?
Yeah, let's take a look at FAQ, or even go back to event.
Accordion. Thank you in the comments. Yes. What was the name there? It's Amorphous. Thank you. Yes, accordion.
And gentle reminder that the giveaway is still going on. It's not too late to win swag from us as well if you're interested. It's just /win on Twitch.
All right. So mark up your FAQs with structured data. So again, what gives you a nice little accordion view and actions on Google Assistant. That's good. And then required properties, insert on the page, guidelines. There's also a validation tool, so we can test after we build some stuff. Ask Google to recrawl. All right, let's take a look at it. So we can see now we have a new type, FAQ page. So we can create a new content model called FAQs. Within FAQs, you have your question, the name of the question, the answer, and then it just repeats question, answer, question, answer, question, answer. So we can create an FAQ content type with a bunch of question and answers. And do you want to do it? This one.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's crush it.
Okay. So let's call this FAQ. Should I call it FAQ page? I like the idea of mapping it.
Yeah, map it. Go for it.
And then FAQ Json Ld. All right. So what do we say? Oh,
see you later, Martin.
Thanks, Martin. So it just looks like we have question, answer. No, it's not that simple, is it?
It is that simple. The name, I guess, too. But
where did you see name?
Yeah.
No, that's the question.
That's it. 3 things or 2 things. So I would probably do this as a reference field.
You would do the.
Because we're gonna want multiple, right? Like it's not necessarily one.
You're right.
So we're gonna need to make a question type as well. And answer.
I was thinking that the whole reference would just be question.
Yeah, one reference is how I would do it.
And then you can have many on the page.
Yeah.
Or many on the in your array.
Yeah.
Okay. Validations.
We haven't made the type yet, so we'll come back to that.
Yeah,
that's fine.
Yeah, we'll set the type after we make the other one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Save it.
Now I'm wondering if this is just verbose. Well, I guess we want to order or highlight. You know, we don't just want a ton. So what? Question.
I mean, you could have different FAQs. If you got let's say you're doing a product launch and it's very premium and you want an FAQ around that, or you've got just a general like return page FAQ, that kind of thing. Like we have a bunch of different categories of FAQs on the Contentful website. They're all on one page, but they are categorized, and I imagine we'd want Google to pick those up differently.
Yeah. Now for the question, do you think questions are going to exceed 250?
Nah, short text is fine. And if it does for someone practically, they can always change it. That's a really easy field to like modify if you need to.
Yeah. Should we make it unique?
Yeah, probably.
Otherwise,
single line is fine.
Okay.
Ooh, my roommate's back.
Fantastic. And then we'll go answer. Short text.
This one I'll probably make long.
Text, yeah. Also make it required.
Yeah. Yeah.
And unique, or can we have the same answer to multiple?
No, I think make it unique. But
okay.
I mean, it's just prevent someone from like doing an accidental copy paste or something.
Where is the unique?
I think it's only on titles.
Oh, okay. I think that's fine then. Okay. Let's go back to our JSON FAQ page.
Mm-hmm.
Add a reference. We already have it here.
Settings. Validations. Yeah.
Yeah, and then appearance. Probably leave it like that.
The card won't work because there's no. I mean, it'll work, but there's no image. Well, maybe do bulk editing too.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that. Okay, so we have
All right, what else do we need in this JSON LD? I think that's it. All right.
It looked like that was it.
Yeah, that's easy.
Text. Okay, so we have two.
We have two.
I'm going to change the title here. Q&A, Json Ld, FAQ, Json Ld. I'm just going to change the title on this one to be consistent.
Go for it.
You never know where people are going to import this and then complain to me later.
No, I feel you. I feel you on that one.
All right. Now the fun part. Shai's where I need your help.
What do you need?
Disclaimer to everyone. Well, I want to get this into code.
Yeah, let's do it.
So the disclaimer I'm going to give everybody is I've not been a professional developer for like a decade. Okay, I actually counted it. I'm that old. So it's.
I think honestly, I don't even think we need to. I think we could do this just entirely in GraphQL, right? Because we're just generating a JSON file, and GraphQL will let us label and set stuff. And so I think we could theoretically just generate this JSON script in GraphQL fairly simply.
Sure. If you have a template and you want to pull it into a template file, I think what would be cool is we could go back to our web.dev and show performance, accessibility, SEO, and then there's even like there's a structured analysis tool that we might be able to put it through. Like right here, rich results test.
Mm-hmm.
If we want to pull it into some dummy pages and do the results test and say, hey, look, we've been talking for like 90 minutes and we have ultimate SEO. I don't know. That's ambitious. I don't know if we can pull this off for the next.
Yeah. I mean, this is one of those things where it's like, I feel like the actual implementation from this point on isn't super interesting, because it's filling in templates on pages rather than like the interesting thing I think is the knowledge that like JSON LD exists and the showcasing how we can reuse and retake some of these templates to like flesh it out. And like maybe when you do provide this starter to people, like it is, like have some of the common ones, and then also like hey, this is just a couple basic ones. Why don't, like, this is where you can go to find the rest of the spec. And if you are writing a recipe blog, like here's the spec, you can go implement it. Whereas like this, it doesn't make sense to share it in the example,
So
it's more just like I feel like a knowledge thing. Like I think technical complexity wise, this stuff isn't crazy, right? Like none of this is particularly challenging. It's more just you have to be knowledgeable about it, and aware of it than anything.
Yeah. So while we're here, I'm just gonna quickly pull this in.
Yeah, go for it.
And
oh man, we could see all your spaces.
oh, this is the work account, right?
Oh, do you have more in your personal account?
Yeah, I have like a bunch of stuff.
Nice.
I have my multi-space test.
Yeah.
I have my docs, my wife's website, my website. I got some demos for some friends.
Yeah.
So we're gonna pull this from our starters. Oh, so I have to re-provide access.
Oh, don't show us your management token. Don't do that.
Oh, it showed. Oh,
no, it didn't. It didn't. It was an empty field.
I'm going to do a refresh. It's not full from Contentful. I'm authenticated. Read only, yes.
Yeah.
So I got that. And I got that. Could not fetch a control from the API. Check the correct details. Should I log out, log back in, and re-authenticate?
Yeah, try it. See if that does it. You might need to revoke and redo your tokens as well.
Yeah, okay, let's do that. Revoke access. Authenticate. Okay. Oh, we might have to be logging the ticket. Let's go on here.
I mean, he's got that public Trello board.
Yeah, yeah. I wonder if
maybe you invalidated your management token or something, but I feel like that should fix it when you re-auth it. I don't know. I think this might be one to figure out off stream as well. So, yeah. No, I think this is really cool. I think this is actually a good stopping point. Unless there's more that you wanna dive into.
So yeah, I guess where my head's going, right, to kind of close the loop here. So I'll figure out pulling it into content model IO, so access to
and we'll send it to me when it's up, and I'll add it to the description on YouTube as well, so folks can find it. And I imagine you're probably going to keep working on this as well and implement a couple other things just for fun.
Over time, where I'm going to go next is I'm going to my thinking is, okay, so if there's anyone here, another one of my kind of fan favorite utilities here is called StackBit. So I was going to spin up a new StackBit project, pull a custom theme, and then I just have a GitHub repo here. And then, have you ever used StackBit?
Nope, I haven't messed around with it.
So you go into StackBit. Okay, let's back up here a bit. So StackBit is like a dashboard to help you manage Jamstack websites. They have a bunch of themes. So if I click new, I have these default themes that I can pick from, which is pretty cool. And then when you say I want to spin up a personal website, then I can say, okay, I want Next, or do I want Gatsby? I can kind of pick my tool, my headless CMS. I can pick Contentful. I can map it to a space, and then I'm already connected to GitHub, so it will create a repo private.
Oh, that's awesome.
So it does a lot of the stitching for me pretty quick, and then it gives me like a project name. So also by default, like the way I have it set up, it will automatically publish to Netlify for me. But there are ways to set that up to go to like Azure, or I think Azure and DigitalOcean are the other two. So but also if you have a custom theme, custom Jamstack theme, you just paste your GitHub ID, and it loads. Okay, it says 28 content models.
Oh, that's nifty that it pulls that.
Right. So and then next is fine. We'll go to Contentful. What space do I want to put it into? Yeah, we'll leave it in that one there. And what should I call this?
Oceanic Tulip is fine.
Oceanic Tulip. Okay, I go create site. It's going to take a bit to warm up.
World record is 32 seconds. That's a funny stat to share.
I think that number has changed. I thought it was like, it used to be like minutes. So what this is, yeah, so yeah, I like StackBit because it kind of helps build your Jamstack sites really, really quickly. And you know, they have the Contentful integration, which is really nice.
Love seeing a Contentful integration.
So while this is loading up, let's give that a second to load up. I'll flip over to the GitHub repo that I imported. So this is just a fork of one of the StackBit themes. And then because it's forked to my local, I can go, I always clone the repo and then create that way, because then I can go hack at the code however I want. After this is done setting up too, it will set up it has, I've already authenticated it with GitHub, so it has write permissions, so it will probably set up my webhooks for me.
GitHub Pages thing or something?
Yeah, to Netlify.
Netlify.
So I don't know if it's probably going to take a while, but it will set up the webhooks. So if I edit code, commit it to master, it will then re-trigger my Netlify build. But let's give it a second. We'll do this thing.
And I think it had already done the Contentful thing at this point, so there should be something in Contentful.
Yeah. So let me go over to Contentful. Where do we put it? Oceanic Tulip.
Oh, that's cool. It creates a new space for you, which is great.
So it comes with some models that are predefined. So I'm going to show this. This is cool. So the content model is codified. Where would it be? Where is it? Where is it? What's the data? No, that's not it. Oh, I think it's just a StackBit YAML file. Yeah, there it is. Yeah, so this metadata will create a metadata. So I'll go over to Contentful. Let's see, I have a page metadata, metadata extra. Let's see if I see like what's it called? There's a site config. So go to Contentful, and it will be site configuration, 8 models. Right, so created these 8 models based on these fields. And then let's see, there is a header configuration. So go over here, header configuration. So it allows you to specify the model in code. So my next step is to hack this and add all of my Json Ld fields over into this text file. And then if I rerun my script, it will repopulate my space with all of those fields, which is really nice. So that's kind of a next step. And then if I go backward to StackBit now, so now it says Oceanic Tulip. I can open it up. I can go over to Netlify. It should all be here as well. Oceanic Tulip, deploys from GitHub. So I'm going to go back into my GitHub config. Let's see if my webhooks are all auto-configured. This is why I like it, because like, it's not.
Did it put the webhook in Contentful out of curiosity?
Did.
That's cool.
Yeah. So set up. So, okay. So it's going to, it's posting back to StackBit, which so every time I make a publish or edit or change, it updates. So the other kind of cool thing that I like about StackBit is, see how it has like a visual editor?
Yeah.
So click in here. There we go. Hello world.
And will that update on Contentful?
Yeah. So
that's cool.
Bubble. So I go back. This was, what is this block called?
I think it was the front page.
So I go into my content.
We can just see, yeah, Hello World update. Hello World. That's awesome. Yeah. That's super cool.
And then, so what I've learned though about StackBit is like, if I want to rearrange these things, the drag and drop is a bit finicky. Say I want to
it's easier to do it here.
Yeah, it's easier to do it here. Right. So we see I have learn more, contact us, but I want to flip the order. So just flip the order.
And then probably refresh that page.
Come back here. Let's give it a second here. There, it flipped.
Oh, that's awesome.
Right, and then I can flip it back. So it's a nice little kind of editor interface.
Yeah, this reminds me of some of the stuff that you're working at your last gig, which probably not allowed to talk about, but I think this is really cool. So
no, we've talked at Contentful meetups about Tell Us a Site Builder, right? So
yeah, this feels a lot like what y'all were doing with Site Builder, which I really liked Site Builder, and so this is one of my frustrations with Site Builder was that I couldn't give it to people to mess around with, and this I feel like gives you that really cool, like, you know, visual inline kind of WYSIWYG style of doing things, which I know a lot of editors are really into. So this is a really interesting tool. I'm gonna have to go play with it.
So yeah, so we are tightening our partnership with StackBit quite a bit because of this kind of capability, two-way synchronization. Like I think our founders are investors in StackBit though, so there's a bit of a disclaimer.
Yeah. Yeah, like this would be really cool as like an app inside of Contentful. Like you've got a tag where it's like StackBit and it gives you the full page app of the StackBit interface.
But there's no reason why I couldn't make a custom preview, open preview, flips over to StackBit, and then you're off to the races, right?
Yeah.
And then it also gives you like the whole kind of tree hierarchy. So if I go into features, I hit this little navigate, it's gonna flip me over to the features page. Yeah. Let's go. I'll find my features over here. It's probably called features, right? And then I have a list of features here. So I'm going to go modify feature 1, see what happens.
Yeah.
Okay, it does the little yellow bubble thing. Update in feature 1.
It'll probably be changed. There we go. And that's cool that it picks up the changes too.
Yeah. So where I'm going next is, using this StackBit starter, going into these components.
And adding in the SEO stuff.
Right. So they have a post body. So I'll go add in, it's pulling, I got to pull it from, it's probably in a layouts. There we go. Right. Go into my post. Article.
Yeah, and then building that JSON LD, like right up here, populating it with things like author last name, references, and that kind of stuff. Where does it declare the content model, out of curiosity? Is that a thing that you have to do on a top level, or is that a thing that it just like, it's like, hey, it's asking for these things? Like,
what do you mean by declare content model?
Like the featured content model or the author content model. Like, I guess it'll just.
It's in this StackBit.
It's in here, in that YAML you were showing before.
So this models line.
Yeah.
So we were just looking at post, right? So we have the config, header, footer, person, category, page, post. So so I would add all of our Json Ld fields right here in the field setting, all those ones that we just did in the visual editor. I could add it as a text file, or now that it's already published, like I don't have to change this. This is just a config to get it set up. I could go add it directly, I could import it directly into my Contentful space, and then go to layouts and just start referencing the code. And start
That's really cool.
But although what I'm seeing here is, I believe all of my...
This is just using Jinja, I think, to render it.
Yeah, so header.html, no, it's just that. Base. I'm trying to find out where all my meta information goes.
Probably be in like templates or layouts.
Well, I'm in layouts. We see a page, we see a post, we see a body.
Go up a level.
Header's pulling, footer's pulling. Where's base? That's what we're looking for.
Base is scroll up, layouts, components maybe. Nope, not here.
There's the HTML head. Maybe it's in here. Oh, this is what I need.
Yeah.
The HTML head. So this is where I'd add in my Json Ld. Now, probably have to put in some logic here that if it's a to pull in the type from whatever that page type is. So if it's a page, pull in web page. If it's an article, pull in article.
Yeah.
So I probably only have to create one Json Ld include here. I haven't figured that out yet. That's what I think we're gonna run out of time. We're not gonna be able to do that today.
Yeah.
But that's where we go next.
Yeah.
Just actually get it into the code view, and then I'll be able to then show. And out of curiosity, right? Because this is full-on Jamstack, and I have this preview URL now. So if I put this in the web dev, I'm pretty sure it's going to score quite good.
You're bringing it back. You're making a circle.
Yeah, right. Like that's kind of the point.
Honestly, I'm kind of surprised that Netlify doesn't just do that automatically for you.
You think Netlify has they could have a like a plugin for they have all of these add-ons, right?
Yeah.
I wonder if they have an add-on for
Lighthouse.
Functions.
Different thing. Functions is like their serverless thing.
Yeah, they might have like a Lighthouse is the function.
Maybe in analytics? Or that's probably just going to be page traffic. Yeah. I feel like this is one of those things we could Google and would find really quickly if it existed.
They have plugins. I'm going to Google it. Netlify Lighthouse. There's a build plugin of the week. Of course there is. So on every build, it just reruns Netlify.
Yeah.
And install it. It doesn't charge me anything.
Hopefully not.
Install.
Option.
Maybe
it'll be listed on the build or something, or
deploys.
Yeah. Probably need to redo a deploy or trigger a deploy. And then we'll see what happens when this is done. Hopefully it doesn't take too long. We have a question for someone in the chat about using webhooks on AWS. I have no idea. They're asking if you can use webhooks on or S3 without having an enterprise account. If it's specifically, I think, using AWS webhooks on Contentful or just using AWS webhooks generally. I believe AWS webhooks on Contentful is an enterprise thing, but I think our templates are free, so you can just configure it yourself.
Yeah, I think if you go in and go to webhooks.
Yeah, I think the templated one is just like an enterprise template, but you could do it manually. You don't need to. Yeah. The what you're talking about is apps. Oh, yeah, I'm not gonna mess it up right now because I think this is a free space because it came from. Yeah. So in the CL 18 templates, there should be an AWS one in there.
Oh, here we go. AWS Lambda enterprise plan only. You are correct.
Yeah, but you don't need to use the template. You can just write it yourself. I think the template just makes it a little easier.
So we did a measure. This is how
it's not bad. The SEO is the only thing that needs work, which makes sense because that's the project.
We haven't added it yet, yeah. And see, the Q is a layout shift, right? It's giving us a flag on that one. So I'm gonna flip. I'm gonna go to the report view. So let's go to SEO. Links do not have descriptive text. Yeah, I probably haven't. It all says learn more. Oh, that's another thing. Your buttons can't say learn more anymore. Yeah. It's a nice, should have.
Really? How come? It's just
it's too generic. So if you're on a non-screen device or like a accessibility device, or learn more, it just doesn't tell you. It should be like learn more about my feature. So like
right, because you're gonna flip through and you don't know what you're learning more about. Yeah. That makes sense.
So I think shy is fancy. So I should change this to where's my CTA? Just learn more about feature one. Yeah. Right, and then that's That's a quick fix, right? Go through all my CTAs, make the fix. Let's see here. Oh, I have to change the property of that in the code to make it work on mobile. That's actually not too bad. And I haven't even added Json Ld to this yet, so I haven't taken it to the ultimate level. But you can see the performance.
Yeah, performance is great.
Yeah, this is probably because
you're using an old version of Lodash.
Yeah, so I can use Dependabot and GitHub to pick that up. And there's a large JavaScript file. I'll probably have to fix that.
Yeah.
But again, that probably is not too trivial. Contrast. Yeah, the buttons are not a good blue. Okay, good to know. And then I don't know what these are. It's all just a button.
Debpoo06 just said, I love that the links are on the report are learn more, and then they complain about learn more.
Yeah, yeah. And now they're complaining about the color of learn more or the color of this text. It's like the gray
and they've got the matching, their colors are a little similar too with the greens and the.
Oh yeah, the Google colors, right? Like this and that. Yeah. And then,
you mind pulling up Netlify and seeing what it did with the Lighthouse plugin out of curiosity? This is more my curiosity than anything. Like, did it go back to just the build? Oh, there we go. There it is. And then does it pull it up in the builds, or like does it show it somewhere?
No. Why is my performance so low here? Right. It was just 93 on the other side, and now it's showing me 63. I'm gonna go back to the builds. Where was the builds? Well, okay, sorry. Just give me a second here.
No worries.
I wonder if interesting. I have to do, and then that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm just curious how they represent it on like the Netlify top, like because I imagine you don't want to look at the actual build logs to see it. Like, does it say it somewhere? Or?
Lighthouse ran successfully. Yeah. I think that's it.
That's it. That's kind of lame, but that's not as cool. But oh wow, your PWA score dropped a lot too. Maybe, you know what I have a feeling this is? It's probably because Netlify hasn't cached it yet.
I don't know.
Or like it's just, doing that initial, like putting it on the CDN and it won't give you the decent speeds until like that first hit. Like I imagine if you rerun it, you'll get the same performance number.
Yeah, the ones that are over here, because this is the same URL.
Yeah. But like you open that URL before you put it in here. Right. So like you would have loaded it at least once. And so Netlify would have then cached the website. Like I don't think it does the actual cache event until it gets hit once.
Oh,
so like Netlify doing a performance thing is probably kind of like they should open that URL and then they should run that Lighthouse score.
Yeah, so they probably run the Lighthouse score as it on first hit and nothing's cached.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
That's odd. So
right. Or I just have to add this server-side rendering in Next as well.
Yeah.
So we're pretty close to being at ultimate SEO. Right?
Now it's just implementation. Like the hard part I feel like is figuring it out and like knowing how to architect it, and then it's actually going and implementing it, which is also difficult, but a different kind of difficult. That's more of a time difficulty than a complexity difficulty.
Yeah, and I feel like I have the file open.
Yeah.
Right? Like I can.
Yeah.
I bet there's probably an NPM.
There definitely, I imagine, is an NPM for this.
And I don't know if I like that first tip, but I bet you it'll automatically pull my code, and I just have to change the variables to match whatever I named them in that Contentful payload. And here's a simplified implementation of Json Ld. Let's open it up. Okay. Not to be confused with the official Json Ld.
Yeah.
That's confusing. Let's go to the official one. I'm just gonna.
I like that they include a link to the official one at the very least. That's kind of nice.
Here we go. There's a lot here. But yeah, npm install Json Ld. And then, yeah, CDN version. That's fine. How do I? Okay, here's some examples. Oh, I like this. How they have like the shorter format.
Yeah.
The compact format. How to override the loaders. I gotta dig into the docs to figure out how this works.
Yeah.
But
I think this is probably a good time to wrap it then too. If you're gonna dig into the docs and start figuring it out, we're getting close to the 2-hour mark as well. So I think it probably makes sense. I'm getting a little hungry. Just like kind of my end state is, when am I hungry?
Yeah. No, that's a good kind of point here.
Yeah. So I guess last call for folks on the giveaway. As well, just you do have to be here is the one thing. You have to be here to win. Yeah, I'll give you like another second. I mean, I've been talking long enough right now, so I think I'm gonna go ahead and hit that draw button. Andrew, can I get a drum roll? All right, Martin, I think, is our winner. I think Martin headed out a little earlier. So let me see if I can find them on Twitter, and if they are on Twitter, I'll just send them a tweet. And Twitter, let them know they won. Oh no, I don't think I can find them. Okay, I'm gonna do another drawing unless Martin is in there. NM2 2021 CMS, are you still here? Give us yes, no. I'm not seeing him. All right.
Oh, he's there.
He's there. Naresh, amazing. Perfect. Just shoot me a tweet or a Twitter DM. I'm Twitter Shai Ruparel. And just give me a screenshot of you logged in so I know it's you. And I just need your address, your phone number, and your t-shirt size, and I will send it over. And you're welcome to email me if that's easier than Twitter. I'm shy@contentful.com as well. And I will hook you up with your prize. So cool. Andrew, thanks so much for joining us. This was a lot of fun. I'm really glad we managed to make this happen. It was really great having you here, answering my questions, and I feel like I learned a lot today.
That's what I'm here for. I hope this is useful, and that people get to learn a lot. And I think we get this recorded on YouTube.
Yeah, it'll be up on YouTube in a little bit. So it actually, I think, cross posts to YouTube right away, and then I have to go write the description. So I have to go watch the stream and be like, all right, what were all the links that we talked about? Cool, let me drop these links in the comment in the description, which is fun for me. So I have a little bit of homework. I usually get that done by like a day or two afterwards. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you very much for
no worries. Me. Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for watching, and we will be back next week. I'm going to be joined by Andy from Ninetailed. We're going to be doing some stuff with personalization, which I'm really excited for because I know very little about personalization as well. So this is kind of the Shy doesn't know anything power hour of streaming period, I guess. Fantastic. This should be a lot of fun. But yeah, thanks everyone, and we'll see you all back here next week. Bye.
Thanks. Cheers. Bye.